Hey there guys, my name is Brandon from Gearist.com, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Thunder III GTX from La Sportiva. Oftentimes we find that as a boot becomes a little more beefy, it becomes more and more inflexible, and it doesn't really work with the foot quite as well as you might want, especially when you go from a more traditional hiking boot into a more trekking oriented boot. Now the reason for this is because a trekking boot is not necessarily meant to be on well-worn paths or hiking trails. A trekking boot is something that's meant to go overland. Yes, it can handle those hiking trails, but it's also meant to just go off-road no matter where you want to go. With that comes a measure of added protection, and with that, again, that stiffness and lack of flexibility comes in, and basically you really lose touch with the ground. With the La Sportiva Thunder III GTX, we're really impressed with the way that this still has the durability and the beef of a really hardcore boot, but has the touch and feel of a much lighter boot. So let's take a look at all the features. First, the outsole of the Thunder III GTX, which is a little dirty here, you'll have to excuse that, is made from Vibram River rubber compound. Vibram River rubber compound. That's right, very, very durable. We all know how durable Vibram is, and La Sportiva has included this as they do with many of their shoes. One of the other things they've tied over with some of their other shoes is the impact braking system, or IBS, which is meant to complement the natural stopping power of a shoe and increase it by up to 20%. What I notice is that this does a spectacular job on loose material because, again, and I'll talk about this more in the kind of performance section of this review, the boot really tends to feel as though you can work with it so much, not so much that it's trying to work for you or work against you. So the traction of the outsole is excellent. The durability, you know, I've read a couple reviews, actually, excuse me, I've read one review or saw a mention somewhere where they thought the durability of the outsole wasn't that great. I have to disagree. I've taken this in snow, I've taken this in gravel, I've taken this in really sandy stuff, and several miles. I'd have to say that this probably has a solid 50, close to 50 miles of just hiking and walking and trekking in it, and I basically see no substantial wear. There's a little bit right here, but in general, really holds up very, very well. No durability issues whatsoever, and that impact braking system does a great job going uphill and downhill. Now recently we've seen a lot of different midsole foams that are compounds. They're not necessarily just EVA foam, and the same is true for the Thunder III GTX. Made from 30% isobutylene isoprene rubber, that's right, IIR rubber, and 70% EVA foam. This, which you can see here, the gray part, is again, it's meant to give you that nice cushion that EVA foam does, but the rubber added to it is going to give you a little more response and resilience, and that's, I think, where a lot of this touch that I keep mentioning comes in. Also integrated into the midsole is a shank in through here, which obviously you can't see without cutting the boot open, but that is where you're going to get that stiffness from this. It's going to add some protection. Now, I said there's a shank there, but I also said it's got that feel of a much less stiff boot, because you can see here, it's got flexibility, but that flexibility ends up here right in front of the kind of the forefoot area. But what's odd about this is because of the resilience and because of the amount of midsole that there is, you really feel as though the foot is flexing all inside of it the entire time. It's actually kind of an interesting feeling because you can look down at the boot, it doesn't appear as though it's flexing that much, but you still feel that flexibility, which is something that I really like, and it's something that contributes to comfort on longer treks and hikes. Now for the upper of the Thunder III GTX. This thing, quite simply, is badass on the upper. Now, made from primarily nubuck leather, which you can see here, it's really, really super durable with using natural materials like that. Each part of that nubuck, you can see, comes up and catches one of the eyelets. What's great about that is it doesn't just rely on the fabric that's underlying the nubuck leather, but it also lets the leather itself contribute to that without kind of overlaying the entire thing with rubber and making it a little bit more heavier than it needs to be. The woven part that you can see here on the upper, which is all around here, the tongue, the gussets, all that stuff, that is Cordura, which is a super, super durable material, and it's also backed with this Gore-Tex comfort liner, which you can see right in there, that gray part. Now that right there is obviously going to keep your feet comfortable and dry. Now, probably one of my favorite parts on this is this badass toe cap, which you can see right here. It's overlaid bonded rubber that is smack right on there. This thing is amazing, and especially if you are going really off-road in some brush where it's also rocky, you really can't see where you're going, this comes in super, super handy. I can't tell you how many toes I would have broken in shoes or boots with less of a toe there. So that is a big favorite of mine. Up the back side of the Thunder III GTX, you can see this rubber part here goes up onto the ankles. What's great about this is that it adds a little bit of stability to the rear foot, because you can see for a beefy boot up front, this is actually quite flexible throughout the heel counter. But this piece of rubber right here adds a nice amount of spring, and kind of, I think that's again something that contributes to that lighter shoe feel that you would expect from this boot. So that's actually a nice, really nice touch right there also. Now, as I mentioned a second ago, the interior of the shoe is lined with Gore-Tex comfort liner. Now, it's really, really wonderful, and I've actually worn this barefoot a couple times, not on anything extended, and I would not recommend that, but it's actually very nice along the foot. It's very comfortable, nice and soft, very slick, and I've taken this through a few very deliberate water crossings, and in those things, and been in the water for several minutes at a time, more than I needed to be. I never really felt any moisture come through at all. The one place where I felt a little bit, it didn't even feel like it was really wet. It just felt a little bit cool, was right here on the top of the tongue. And again, this was where I'd been in kind of like ankle deep water for several minutes. I felt a little bit cool on the top of the tongue. Was it getting wet? I don't think so. But it definitely, I felt a little bit of coolness from the creak. Not a big deal, and I got out of the water and that was that. It went away. I mean, really, really solid material, and that comfort liner is a nice touch. Let's touch on the fit really quickly. First, the sizing is spot on. This is a size 11, and it's exactly where I would expect it to be. This is kind of interesting for La Sportiva, since some of their running shoes tend to run a half size, if not a full size, small in certain cases. But this, I would not hesitate to just wear whatever shoe size you're comfortable in most of the time. Through the heel and into the midfoot, I feel like it fits really, really well. You might feel initially when putting it on that if you have a wider foot that it's not going to work. But I, for one, think that that's the time for you to play with the laces a little bit. Because this has a fully and wide gusseted tongue, as you can see there, there's plenty of room for this to spread out and play with a wider foot if needs be. As you move up into the forefoot, it's got a nice amount of vertical space, which is good, again, because you've got the beefy toe cap here, and you might think that that would compress that area a little bit, but it does a good job. As with most shoes, and I'm being a little bit picky about this, I wouldn't mind terribly seeing a touch more lateral room right here, like a 1/4 of an inch more lateral room. But aside from that, the toe box is very comfortable, and it doesn't agitate you over long walks or hikes or what have you. It's really, really very comfortable in all sorts of conditions. As for the performance of the boot, I've been touching on this here or there throughout this review, and I have to say that, again, for a very kind of beefy boot that's meant to take a lot and handle really, really gnarly trails, it really does handle like a much lighter boot. It's much more flexible feeling than it actually is while you're wearing it. Again, it's not super flexible when you're doing this, but internally, because of the ISO whatever that rubber, the IIR rubber and the EVA foam compound in the midsole, as well as the flexibility in the heel back here and up the Achilles insert, it really feels very comfortable and, again, like a much lighter boot. It's pretty impressive. If I had my druthers and could see something different really quickly, I would be really curious to see how this boot would perform with a little more midsole flexibility or outsole flexibility. Basically just flexibility front to back. And I think that that would really enhance the feel. Not any big deal for me. I'm perfectly comfortable in this. And again, because of that midsole making it feel like it's a much lighter boot, you don't really miss that. But I would be curious to see what that would be like. For a boot that costs $185, you would expect a lot of bang for your buck, and La Sportiva does not disappoint. Now, this is a thoroughly well-constructed shoe. As I said, the durability of the outsole is spectacular. The layered construction of the upper does a great job in keeping the natural materials with the nubuck leather, but also keeping that durable cordura in there to really, really reinforce that while still maintaining comfort. This boot is meant to go off-road, on-road. It's meant to go on trails or no trails at all. It's super, super versatile, and again, because of that feel internally, which you're not necessarily going to feel externally, feels like a much lighter, more flexible boot that can basically take you anywhere you need to go. I definitely recommend this boot and strongly encourage you, if you're looking for your next pair of hikers, to check this out. Now, my question to you is, when was the last time you went out on an honest-to-goodness hike, and how far was it? Leave your answers in the comment section below. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Gearist TV. If you've got any questions at all or want to reach out and shoot us a note, please do so by emailing info@gearist.com, or find us on Instagram, Twitter, which is @TheGearist, Facebook.com/Gearist, or just leave us a note in the comments section down below. As always, please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can click that button right over there, or there's a button somewhere around here on YouTube. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love your subscriptions. So if you like what you see, definitely subscribe to our channel. Also, don't forget to visit the home website for Gearist just by clicking right there, or visit Gearist.com. We'd love to see you. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.